You ready for the next question?
Stand by. Okay, it says we're live on YouTube. If somebody that's watching on YouTube would shoot me a message in the chat function, letting us know if you can see and hear me, that would help. But what's our next question coming from Facebook?
Okay, will there be plenty of opportunities for kids to wash their hands with soap and water as opposed to just using hand sanitizer throughout the day?
Yes, and really they do want us to limit the amount of hand sanitizer used for several reasons. Number one, it's very expensive to buy, but there's nothing more effective than washing your hands with soap and water. So yes, we will be taking those restroom breaks. We'll talk about restroom breaks here in a minute, but yes, we're really going to push the washing of hands with soap and water.
How will morning drop-off work? Will the kids be allowed in the building prior to 7:15 to report to the gym?
Yes, that's part of our reopening plan. Those kids that report to the gym, we've already got the seats in the gym taped off where there's a buffer zone of 2 seats in between each child, and there's no child sitting directly in front of another child for at least 4 rows. We're going to have to utilize both sides of the gym and the seats and the bleachers, and we can do it that way. Plus, we're marking off spaces 6 feet apart on the floor for students to sit and wait. Those that go to breakfast are going to have to remain in the breakfast room to limit the number of kids that are in the gym at that time. And the cafeteria is also blocked off the same way, where there's a buffer zone between all of our students. Again, we're going to allow our 8th grade students who choose to do so to go to the outside classroom and wait in the mornings. That's sort of a special treat for them. But again, that area will be marked off as well to provide a buffer zone between each student. How are we doing on YouTube?
We're good.
All right.
We're good.
Great.
Does distance learning start August 10th or 17th? I've seen both.
Theoretically, that's the first day of school. We will not start with academics that first week, really in either in-person or distance learning. Your distance learning folks, your main goal on that first week from the 10th to the 14th is for your teacher just to make connection with you online. We hope to start that the first day if we can. Make sure everything is up and running. Have a little virtual meeting and orientation on what's expected of the students during their distance learning time. But really, we'll start full bore that following week on the 17th.
Will there be a separate Q&A session that can be distance learning specific?
Sure, I can do that. If you'd prefer a separate session to talk about distance learning concerns, we'll be glad to do that.
How can we get a computer for distance learning?
We will start issuing textbooks and any materials that you need, including those of you that need a device, next week. Now, here's the schedule. I will send this out, but I'm just going to kind of give you a quick rundown just for your information. And it's going to be during the afternoon times next week. We have in-person learners here in the morning. We want you to come in the afternoon to pick up your materials from 1 to 3 on the following days. On Monday the 10th, 7th and 8th graders only, 7th and 8th graders only on Monday the 10th, you're going to come pick up your materials. Tuesday the 11th is going to be 5th and 6th grade. Again, same time frame, 1 to 3. Wednesday is going to be 3rd and 4th graders. Thursday, 1st and 2nd graders, and kindergarten parents can come on Friday to pick up any necessary materials. You will have to pick up some textbooks because you're going to need those. Even though a lot of them can be accessed through Clever online, some of them cannot. And there's a lot of consumable materials that you need as well. You'll also need to pick up your student agenda book because it has the whole handbook and everything in there as well. So, and I will send that information out to you both in School Messenger and through Class Dojo.
You do have a YouTube question.
Okay, we have a YouTube question. Will kindergarten students still be able to do centers and rotations or desk work only? No, we're going to be able to do small, very small centers. There'll just be several of them going on at the same time so the kids can spread out. But that's our hope is, yes, they'll still get to do that. And what we'll have to do is provide each student with their own set of materials for their centers. We won't be sharing any supplies or materials. Each student is going to have their own set. And those that use laptops and computers in all the grades, they'll have to be wiped down between each rotation. And we will keep the same group of kids together in that rotation. Again, that'll just limit the number of kids that they come in close contact with. Great question.
Are all distance learners in the same class?
Are all distance learners in the same class? In some grades, yes. In some grades, no. We were able to work that out in a few of the grades. But we have so many distance learners, it's going to take more than one class. So some of the distance learners are going to be spread out among the rest of the grade levels. But in a couple of grade levels, yes, they'll all be in one class together.
How will the phase-in days work the first week?
The phase-in days, be specific on that. Are we talking about kindergarten phase-in or everybody's? If you could send me a clarification for that. But I'm going to answer a couple of YouTube questions while we're doing that. Will there be recess time? If so, will there be masks required outside? Yes and no. There will be recess time, and we are scheduling it, and we're using all the outdoor space we have to spread out, and kids will be allowed to take their masks off for recess. We think they need to do that, but we're really going to push that the kids stay 6 feet apart when they do that. So it's going to take some work, and we're really going to have to be conscious about how close we are to each other. But yes, we do want them to go outside and take their masks off. And here's another question on YouTube. How many TFAA students have signed up for distant learning? We would love a grade by grade breakdown. We're right now at about 27, 28%. And that's kind of spread out throughout all the grade levels. But if I look at it, I've got those numbers right here. Now, these are not up to date, but we're probably only about 10% in kindergarten. Okay. And that's the smallest grade level that's doing distance learning. And I think that's probably good. It's really hard to do kindergarten distance learning, but we're going to make it work. But that's the smallest group. Everybody else is fairly even, anywhere from, most of them are around 20. Some of them a couple more than 20 per grade level, some of them a couple of fewer. We've got anywhere from 18 to 25, really, if I look at across all the grades. And it's fairly evenly spaced.
How often will you clean the desks and other belongings in and out of the classroom?
Well, for classes that rotate and departmentalize, they have to be cleaned after every rotation. The material that we have is a 4-minute timed material that everything is sprayed down. We have to wait for 4 minutes for anything to be touched, and then it's completely sanitized. Self-contained elementary classrooms only have to do that once or twice a day.
Here's a question about masks. Neck gaiter versus face shield versus cloth behind the ears.
Cloth behind the ears are the mandated masks. Face shields, we will be providing some of those and asking for some of those too, especially for our younger level learners when we really have to see their mouth as they're learning phonics and learning how to make those sounds. But the expectation is you got to put the mask back on after that. Neck gaiters they say are not sufficient for that. So we are looking for the cloth masks that either go behind the ears or tie around the back of your head. All right, here's a YouTube question. What is the schedule next Monday, the 10th? Registration walkthrough for traditional learning. Great question, because that's going to be different this year than it's ever been in the past. Normally that registration day, parents, we want you to come in, fill out that registration paperwork, find out who your teacher is, and then your student could just turn around and leave with you. It's not going to work that way this year. Since the district implemented their new online learning, there's really online registration. There's really no reason to come in to fill out paperwork. You can do all that online. However, you're welcome to, if you have some trouble doing it online or you just prefer to do it hard copy, pencil and paper, come on into the office, parents, and we'll let you do that. Students will go directly to the classroom, and they are expected to stay the full 2.5 hours this time. You'll be getting some orientation from your teachers, and we'll be talking you through all these procedures that we have in place. So that is an important day for you guys, and attendance is taken. It is one of the 180 attendance days for the year for students.
Since there are no lockers, can students bring a rolling backpack?
Yes, we're going to allow any type of backpack that you'd like to have. That came from Facebook. Can students bring rolling backpacks if they're not going to use lockers this year? Yes, we'll allow them to use rolling backpacks if they want. So you might think about that, finding a good backpack to use. Here's one on YouTube. You said there will be some whole classes of distance learners. Would those students have to switch teachers if they return to traditional learning after the first quarter or semester? No, they will not. They will return directly to that teacher's classroom. Every student will keep their same schedule, and they'll keep their same assigned teacher. That's why in those grade levels that we have maybe more than a full class of distance learners, I can't put all of them in one class together. I have to spread them out a little bit because we can't have a class overloaded when you come back. Hope that makes sense. All right, we do have another Facebook question.
Distance learning live or recorded?
Distance learning, is it live or recorded? And the answer to that is both. We're going to be live streaming classes, and we hope you can join it during that live streaming time. That's the best way to do it. That's the intention. But those live streams will be recorded and uploaded into the Kidum platform that we use. So if you can't make it live that day, you can watch the class later. Here's another YouTube question. Phase-in question was for all grades, not kindergarten. Oh, thank you. All right. And I guess you're talking about next week. Well, here's the schedule for next week. On Monday, Students are here for 2.5 hours in grades 1 through 8, not kindergarten, but grades 1 through 8 come for 2.5 hours. That's 7:30 to 10. And basically, like I said earlier, they're going to be doing some orientation, learning about our different procedures and stuff that we have in place. The rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday, it's a 3-hour and 15-minute day, very much like our former early dismissal days. They'll be here 7:30 to 10:45, 3 hours and 15 minutes. And again, they'll be getting to know their teachers. Those that rotate will visit their schedules. They'll go see their related arts teachers. They'll get some more orientation on those days. Okay.
Okay, this question has 2 parts. What technology donations do you need for the teachers to do distance learning and in-person teaching more effectively? And part 2, would it help if students brought their own laptop or Chromebook to class?
Wow, that's my favorite question so far today. It's what technology donations do teachers need to help with distance learning? And is it okay for students, would it help for them to bring their own laptops or Chromebooks to school? And the answer to that question B is yes. If students do have their own device, either at home or at school, we encourage you to use those. And here's why. If we go to all distance learning, or even if everybody who signed up for distance learning needs a device from us, we will run out. We do not have sufficient devices to be totally one-to-one from kindergarten all the way up through 8th grade. So that's our worry, is that we're going to run out of devices in a hurry. So if you've got your own device at all, we encourage you to use that. As far as what donations teachers might need to help them, maybe some sort of platform to set their laptop on that can video them.
Wireless microphone.
Wireless microphones would be fantastic too. If we could come up with some wireless mics for those teachers, I think that would help the kids be able to hear them talk much more. Okay, but we'll work on that. And if I got some better ideas, I will send those out to you. Okay, let's see. Here's some YouTube questions.
Will distance learning students who have questions get those answered?
Okay, will the distance learning students who have questions get those answered live? Teachers monitoring comments like this stream. That is the hope, that yes, but think about that logistically. It's going to be difficult for a teacher to teach a half a class of in-person people and online. They can monitor both of those, but it may take a little bit before they get to your question that's coming in online. Teachers will also have some designated office hours where they can address concerns. And really, when you think about it, that online instruction doesn't necessarily last the whole class period. You have some direct instruction for a while, and then you give students tasks and activities to do based on that instruction. It's during that time that we hope the teacher will be able to go to the laptop and address any specific questions or concerns. I see more YouTube questions. Let me hit some of those real quick. Is the registration you mentioned different than what we did on the RCS website for kindergarten back in May? Great question, kindergarten parents. Yes, if you did the online registration with us in May, you need to go back in and make sure your registration is on file with the district. So go to that link that's on our website. But give us a call in the office if you run into any problems with that. You can email me. Okay, we've been helping folks with that all week, and we'll continue to do that. So here's another one. So distance learners should be physically present on Monday, or is there an orientation plan for distance students? No, great question. Let me clarify that. If you are a distant learner, you do not come to school next week on Monday. You do not. Your orientation will be held virtually. Only the in-person learners come to school on Monday. Okay?
Teachers are going to send out that schedule.
And we will be sending out that schedule. Your teachers will be sending out that schedule. Matter of fact, some of you may be wondering, how do I find out who my teacher is? How do I know what class I'm in? Later this week, when those rosters are finalized, the teachers will be reaching out directly to you to let you know their class assignments. The only reason we haven't done that so far is the deadline for distance learning is not till Wednesday, and that is going to have an impact on our class rosters. They are changing every day until we get all of those registrations in. But they will contact you later this week and let you know who your class is.
Is after school care still being provided?
Okay, is after school care still being provided? Yes, we still have, as far as I know, all the same providers. The YMCA Fund Company, it will start the week of the 17th. So during those half days next week, there is no YMCA Fund Company. You'll need to make other arrangements. But the other groups like Boys and Girls Club and Dance with Stacy and all those groups that come pick us up, as far as I know, are still planning on doing that. But I encourage you to reach out to them. If you need to know their phone numbers, shoot me an email. I can send you a list of all those. Okay. When will middle schoolers get their schedules? They'll get it on the 10th when they come. If you're a distance learner, the teacher will send it to them during their orientations next week. Here's another one. In the traditional setting, will teachers be able to work closely with younger students to look over, work together? How will this work with social distancing guidelines? Yes, as long as you have a mask, you can get close enough to each other to work and provide feedback. I mean, that's part of school with little kids. We've got to do it. Kids need that close interaction. We do need to try to stay 3 feet apart when we have a mask on, but I think we can do that and still provide the feedback those kids need.
Is August 10th an actual 2-hour day since kids registered online?
Is August 10th an actual 2-hour day since kids registered online? Yes, it is still a 2.5-hour attendance day for kids. You are expected to be there whether you've registered online or not. Hopefully you all have registered online. If you're having trouble with that, please let us know.
How is staggered dismissal going to work?
How's staggered dismissal going to work? Great question. We will be sending groups out grade levels at a time. We're going to start with our kindergarten and first graders, and we're going to try to get them out early before that 2:30 bell so we can take our time and get them in the right cars. If they have an older sibling, we're going to call that older sibling down to meet them to get in the car together. Other grades 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, and 4 will come out the front doors like always. We'll have a designated area for each grade level to stand or sit so we can maintain social distance. We're going to have to spread out all down the sidewalk and back in the grass, but we will make that happen. But we're only going to send them out a grade level at a time. That way we don't have all that congestion in the front doors coming out. And then same thing on the back side of the annex for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Okay, here's a question on YouTube. For teacher tech donations, a specific school list of actual wireless mic would be helpful. So we're not purchasing what you actually need and not our best guess. Great point. We'll do that. We will put that out there. We need to find exactly what it is that we need. Okay.
Here's a parent willing to start a TFAA distance learning Facebook page if that would be helpful. We can always pull that on the
right.
page.
Typically, Facebook pages are not allowed through the district, but I think that's a great tool for parents. If you want to start that amongst parents, a great way for y'all to communicate and communicate questions to me all in one fell swoop rather than a lot of people asking the same question. And then that's a great way that you could provide my answer out to everybody too. So if you wanted to organize that, I think that'd be helpful. Very much like the PTO's Facebook page is very helpful too. Okay. Here's a question. Can you discuss how elective or after school clubs can be handled for distance learners? First of all, after school clubs, if you're a distance learner, you're still welcome to participate in that. You just have to bring them after school for those opportunities. And we'll send out word for when sign up comes to both the distance learners and the in-person learners. As far as the electives go, those teachers will be live streaming their classes and recording their classes as well. And the hope is that you can participate right along with them. Like if you play in the string orchestra or the band, when they're live streaming that, you sit down and play right along with them. Okay.
We'll be contacting them next week.
And those teachers will be contacting you next week. Okay.
How many students are signed up for distance learning? We kind of already talked about that. Another one about dismissal. So if your question gets kind of skipped over, that means we answered it earlier. If you want to go back and watch, when will laptops be given out? We did that.
I will send that information out for when laptops and stuff can be picked up. Like we said earlier, that schedule I read, I'll send that out to everybody on Dojo and School Messenger. Okay, here's another question to confirm. What systems can a remote student use? Laptop, Chromebook, Mac, iPad, smoke signals? I like that. It's my understanding that as long as you have Windows 10, the whole Windows 10 suite on a computer or an iPad or something that works at home, you will be fine as long as you have that internet access. Most of the things are going to be accessed directly through the teacher's web pages. You don't need anything special, but you need that Microsoft suite. That Microsoft suite through Windows 10, right?
But Macs are also.
Macs will work too, if you're a Mac person. Yep.
How can we get School Messenger or Dojo for new students?
Your School Messenger will be automatic once you're registered. Your email is uploaded, whatever email you gave us during your registration. It's automatically uploaded into School Messenger. That system updates every so often. It may be a little bit before it gets its final updates done, and you start getting all of my School Messenger phone calls and emails. Dojo, your teacher, will contact you directly for how to set that up.
What is the plan of action in the event of a breakout?
The school has specific, or the school district has specific procedures to follow. Basically, when we find out a student has, let's see, let me look down the procedures with you. I've got it right here in front of me. I can bring that up. Okay. If a student or employee becomes ill while at school or answers yes to any of the screening questions and COVID-19 is suspected, basically we put a mask on that person. We move them to our isolation area, which we have outside the office where we can monitor it. Okay. And anyone assisting this person has to mask up and wear eye protection and gloves and things. Then we'll notify their emergency contact parents to come pick them up. We'll clean the area they've been in that building and communicates to parents and staff that a possible case has been identified and that all the recommended precautions are being taken. We will have to conduct a contact tracing where we make a list of every person that child was within 6 feet of for a 10-minute time period. And then we'll have to notify them. And it could be a whole class has to be sent home and the class shut down for 24 hours to be cleaned and sanitized. And then we go from there. The district will make a call whether it needs to be a whole grade level or a whole wing of a building or the whole building itself. But it all depends on the severity of the outbreak and the number of students that we identify through contact tracing. I hope that answered your question. But I will also, I'll post a copy of the district's policy if you haven't seen it. You can go to the district's webpage. It's admin 1-4C. But I'll also post a copy of that or a link to it on our webpage. That might help you.
When distance learners come pick up textbooks and materials, will the students be able to meet their teacher?
Most likely, no. We'll have to bring those materials outside to you. Go ahead. That's just the procedure the district has asked us to follow.
How long will they be on a laptop each day?
If you're a distance learner, the expectation is that you spend 6.5 hours a day engaged in learning activities, but that does not mean you'll be spending 6.5 hours staring at a computer screen. Like in the regular classroom, you might get your direct instruction from the computer, and then you'll be released to work on some activities and tasks, which are uploaded through Kidum. You can sit and work on those. You can print out hard copies and do, but no, we don't expect that you'll be sitting and looking at a computer for 6.5 hours a day. There'll be breaks in between, just like there always are in regular school, lunch, recess times, things like that. Here's some YouTube questions I need to hit real quick. Will the related arts classes come to the classroom or will they go to the related arts classroom? They are going to go to the related arts classroom. We've spread out the times a little bit between classes so those rooms can be sanitized thoroughly. And our hallway transitions are set up to minimize also contact with very few other people. But we have added time in between each one of those classes for the class to be completely sanitized. We just think it's awfully hard to bring art to a classroom or bring music to a classroom, bring dance to a classroom. We're just going to have to do a great job of sanitizing those particular areas. Okay, if we choose distance learning, but then discover that our child has a learning difference, how will they receive extra help? It's a good question. Again, you'll be interacting with that teacher online, and we'll have to make that determination, as a team, you, me, the teacher, the student, and do whatever we have to do to meet their needs. But the same procedures, if we have to call a student assistance team meeting, we can do that. We can do it even virtually, so you don't have to come to the building. But the same process will be followed.
For new parents, I have concerns about the first day drop-off. How will support staff be identified? How will I know my child got to class? That's
a great question. If you're talking about kindergarten, the teachers will actually meet you outside and bring and as a familiar face to bring your child into the classroom. We'll have other staff monitoring the students that are already here. But we'll also have a plethora of staff members for other grades available in both lobby areas to walk them to their class areas and make sure they can find where they're going.
Will students remain in their houses? If so, will we still have house competition? Will
students remain in their houses? Absolutely. We're still implementing our houses. Our new students will be selecting their houses at random when we get them all back in. But you stay in the same house you were assigned to if you're a returning student. And we will have some house competitions. It may be a little while before we can bring everybody in the gym to do the full-blown competitions. We may have to do them remotely, but we're working on plans for that now. But yes, we will still have our houses. Okay, here's some questions to confirm. What's the deadline for school registration? If you're just registering for school, whether you're a distance learner or an in-person learner, that needs to take place by Monday the 10th. If you're interested in signing up for distance learning, that deadline is Wednesday the 5th. Okay. An Amazon wish list will be great for teacher donations. Okay, that's a good idea as well. And here's another question. My Skyward account says my account isn't one that can have its password reset online. Can you confirm that emailing you is the resolution? Because you need more emails. Yes, sir, that is. And actually, Kelly Hood K at rcschools.net is the wizard at that. If you email her directly, she can get you hooked up just like that. But you're welcome to email me. I'll just probably forward it on to her.
So this one has two parts. We answered the first one. Please explain the process of who has to be quarantined if a staff member or student becomes positive for COVID. But the second part is, will COVID positive confirmation be required before that is activated?
Okay, the question is, will the COVID?
I guess meaning like, does the child actually have to be proven COVID positive before they quarantine the class?
Does the child have to be proven COVID positive before we quarantine the whole class? When in doubt, let's refer to the policy. Yeah, it looks like it does. It has to be a positive COVID-19 case reported before the entire class is required to quarantine. But I will get that verified for sure. But as I read the policy, that's what it says.
Are students required to bring a laptop to school?
No, they're not. No, they're not. We do have laptops here at school. We're just worried about the quantity and supply. Will students be seen live during class by teachers doing the distance learning? They could be. We will be sending home a form for you to sign and give you permission for them to appear live. Otherwise, they could possibly have to turn the video off if that's not something that you want to do. Will students need a mic with distance learning? That would be preferable if you have a mic on your computer so you can interact and ask questions. Otherwise, you can always type your questions in.
What clubs and extracurricular will happen this year, and how will they apply for distance learning?
Right now, we're planning on having the same clubs and extracurricular. It may limit the number of students that get to participate. Like say our dance club our dance is usually a huge group. We may have to break that down into smaller groups, so we're not violating CDC protocols by having too many students gathered together at once. But that's the only limitation I see, is possibly having to limit the number that get to participate. Now here's a question on YouTube. Can you review the cafeteria procedures for students, particularly kindergarten? Yes, great question. How cafeteria is going to work is this. We are splitting our classes in half. Half will get to eat in the cafeteria. And again, we've taped off a buffer zone of 2 empty seats in between every student, with no student sitting directly across from another student. The other half of the students will stay in their classroom and eat lunch. And then the next week, it will rotate. Now, those students that are staying in the classroom, they will get the opportunity to go to the cafeteria and go through the line and get their meal and take it back with them if they so choose. And we'll have those areas marked off to keep students apart.
Is there a county-wide COVID metric that will send the entire county into distance learning?
Yes, there is. And I encourage you to take a look at those metrics. They're at the bottom of the plan. I'm scrolling down there to make sure they're there to tell you what page that's on. And there's lots of questions at the bottom too. Okay, there's the building closure metrics. It's on page 37 of the plan. I'd encourage you to bring that up and take a look at it. See if that will answer some of your questions there. They've refined it a little bit from what they originally had. It's a little simpler now.
Can siblings sit together in the morning prior to 7:15?
Siblings, we will allow to. Those in the same family, yes, we'll allow them to sit together. Here's a question on YouTube that says, how will social distancing affect fire, hazardous weather, lockdown drills? Great question, because we are still required to have all of those practice drills regardless of the pandemic. And our plans for that are to do them a little more slowly, at least initially. As we exit the building, classes will go one at a time with 6 feet in between each student. Our lockdown drills We will not be having any code red lockdown drills where students have to shelter, get down on the floor and huddle up. Any lockdown drills will simply be the code yellow, where we basically continue business but lock down the classroom spaces.
Looking for clarification on masks. So they are not allowed to wear the neck kind.
That is correct. The expectation is they wear a mask, the cloth mask that fits around and attaches to your ears or around your head.
Any idea how long they will have to wear the mask?
No, that will be until that is lifted by either the mayor or the school system themselves. But they will have to wear those for the foreseeable future. You just don't know how long that's going to be. What's the cutoff for distance learning registration? It's Wednesday the 5th. Does the school supplied laptops have built-in mics and video cameras? Yes, they do. Will distance learning students be able to be involved in music and arts? Yes, we'll be live streaming those classes too. Although on the related arts type rotation, there might be a recording that you get to participate along with. But yes, they will get to participate in those as well.
Will the teaching process change based on the number of students doing distance learning versus traditional?
Ask that question again.
Will the teaching process change based on the number of students doing distance learning versus traditional?
Okay, the question, will the teaching process itself change based on the number of students that are doing distance learning? It could. Obviously that's a little new territory there. And if you've got a classroom that's got both distance learning and in-person learning going on at the same time, that will require some adaptations by the teacher. And obviously if you're distance learning, your teacher's not right there always. But we'll hope you can still get to have that same type of interaction. It's just going to look different.
Will there be plenty of teachers to help direct my kiddo to where he needs to go?
Yes, there will.
New to Thurman, Francis.
Yes, there will. There'll be plenty of staff there to help. Great question.
What will the phase-in days look like for the distance learners?
There will be having some afternoon orientation sessions for those distance learners next week, where your teacher will have little Zoom meetings with them to kind of talk them through the whole process and make sure everything is working properly. Here's a question. Also, I forgot if this was answered. Do systems need Microsoft Suite, or can students use Google Docs and Sheets at all?
I answered it.
Okay, I think that's been answered in the chat window by our technology coach. She says, we are a Microsoft district. All students can get 5 free downloads of Office 365.
Could you talk a little more about the role of a parent during distance learning? Should parents
That's a great question.
be more prepared to do or teach their children?
Parents, what is your role during distance learning? Your main role is to monitor your students and ensure that they're engaged online, they're doing the assigned activities, and they're watching the lessons. It's not expected for you to sit there with them and help them do their work. That should happen with interaction with the teacher, but you're basically there to make sure they stay engaged.
If a student has a larger instrument, will they be able to take it to the music room in the morning and go pick it up before dismissal?
Not in the morning. We're setting up an area in the annex where they can leave that and take it with them to class, and then leave it in class, and we're going to allow them to go back early and pick it up at the end of the day. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? According to the school board's metrics for closure, school will need to close 14 days after opening if cases continue to increase in our county. Am I understanding this correctly? Yes, I believe that is the intention. If cases in the community continue to increase after 14 days, the director may make that decision for everybody to go to distance learning.
Just looking for clarification. On Monday, are the parents required to stay, or are we dropping our child off for the 2 hours?
Great question. No, Monday parents are not staying. You're going to drop your child off for the 2.5 hours and leave them with us.
When do we get more information on Kidum?
Hopefully that'll come from your teachers later this week, and then the first of next week in your virtual orientation sessions, if you've chosen distance learning. Just be patient with us. Teachers just started getting trained on Kidum today. There's going to be a lot of kinks that we have to work out, a lot of bugs to fix until we get the process rolling smoothly. Just be patient with us. We will get that ball rolling.
Can distance learners interact if they are watching live instruction?
Can distance learners interact if they're watching live instruction? Yes, that is the hope that they can. There is that capability. Again, it might take them a while to get the teacher's attention if they're working with an in-person learner there. But yes, that is that is the intention, is that they'll get to interact during class. And that's why we want them to tune into the live stream of the class.
How will electives like guitar and vocal work for distance learners?
Same thing like we talked about earlier, guitar elective, all those vocal arts classes. You're going to tune into those classes, whether it's live stream or recording, and play along or sing along with them.
Here's another question about quarantine. What will the protocol be if someone in the class tests positive? Are all students quarantined for 14 days or just those in close contact?
Right now, the question was, is if a student in a classroom is identified as testing positive for COVID, do all the students in the class have to quarantine or just the ones in close proximity? The way the policy reads is only those that we determined through contact tracing had close contact with that particular student.
Will the magnet school absence policy be a little more flexible this year to account for kids getting sick or needing to quarantine for 2 weeks?
Certainly.
Example, there will be some kind of grace given to those kids who have to stay home due to a positive COVID or sibling?
Okay, great question. They're asking about, is the absence policy for the magnet going to be relaxed a little bit if a kid has to stay home sick because they have COVID-19 and have to quarantine? The plan is, if you have to stay home and be quarantined, if you're asymptomatic and you're feeling fine, we want you to join the distance learning for just that 2 weeks. You're not committing to that for the rest of the 9 weeks. You'll just be doing that while you are quarantining, and then you can come back. And those days will not be counted as absences in that case. But certainly nobody's going to lose their spot because they contracted the virus or had to just quarantine because they were near somebody.
How are you planning to teach the different arts online?
Again, the same way we would teach any class is through our live stream and through our videoed lessons from those teachers. It's going to be different, sure is. And we're going to have to give you what supplies you need at home, or let you know some things you need to put together that you'll need, particularly with some of the visual arts classes.
Are sports approved this year?
Sports are approved for this year. They sure are. There we go.
If a student has a typical cold with a cough, will they need to see a doctor and stay home? If so, how will they learn?
If a student has a cold or a cough, well, again, it would be determined by how you answer those questions. And some of those that you may have to answer sound like you need to go to a doctor and get checked, or you have to quarantine until those symptoms go away. But basically, I think you have to be 24 hours or symptom free, although that policy is ever changing, 24 hours with no fever and all respiratory symptoms have improved. Okay, when a student or employee that was ill or answered yes to any of the questions was suspected, they may return to school when one of the 4 following statements is true. A healthcare provider has confirmed in writing that the illness was not COVID-19 related because of an alternative diagnosis. So in that case, yes, if you think you have a cold, you might need to get that diagnosed by a doctor so you can come back to school. Or if the individual has had a positive test and isolated for 10 days plus 24 hours after having no sign or symptoms, including fever.
Will we know who our teacher is before Monday?
Yes, that's the hope, is later this week, Thursday and Friday, we'll be reaching out to you to let you know who your teacher is.
Can the PTO work out a school wish list on Amazon for parents to purchase items and ship directly to the school?
Sure, I think that's something we can work on with the PTO to create that master list of needs. I have a question here about what's the plan for the 8th grade DC trip. Oh, we were so sad we had to cancel that last spring, but we are hoping and praying that the virus will have run its course, or we will all be vaccinated by that point. We're going forth as if we are going to get to have that trip. Right now, though, all field trips have been canceled by the district for the time being, but we are hoping by that point we'll still get to do it.
Here's a comment from your Fun Company post, a mom saying that the YMCA is limiting to 45 kids.
Yes, that's there's a post from a parent who has found out that the YMCA is limiting the number of kids. They haven't told me that, but if you found that out, I would trust that they're limiting it to 45 students. And they will be starting services on August the 17th, the first full week of school for full days. They will not be providing service next week.
Will school choir still meet before and after school?
Yes, that's still the plan, but we may have to limit the number. We'll have to see how many students sign up to do that. But keep in mind, singing right now is a is a prime way to spread those respiratory droplets. So we won't be starting choir anytime soon.
Okay. In the case of a 14-day closure for exposure, do traditional learners convert to distance learners? Will they be taught the distance learning platform so any closure or quarantines with no illnesses don't result in learning gaps?
Great question. It's what happens if you get sick, you're an in-person learner and you have to quarantine for 14 days and go to distance. Will you know those protocols? Well, that's the great thing about the Kidum platform that we have to do the distance learning is we're going to utilize that in class as well. So really it should be a seamless transition if you go to distance learning from being an in-person learner, because we'll be using that Kidum platform in class and students will know what that looks like.
Here's somebody saying that the YMCA already has a wait list.
Okay.
Will you check temperatures daily in the classroom?
We will not check every child's temperature daily. We don't have enough thermometers for that. We do have several. We have one for every 40 students. We will check those as warranted. If a student appears to be ill or expresses that they're not feeling well, that's when we'll use those. We won't be checking everybody's temperature every day.
How will the staggered dismissal affect the actual car rider line when getting into the school? Will they funnel out by grade?
It may delay us starting the second through fourth grade line till we get everybody out there, but our plan is to go ahead and start the kindergarten first early to get that moving. So that should not be delayed there, but the second through fourth might be a little bit slower getting started than normal until we get the kinks worked out of getting everybody outside in a timely manner.
How are the staff identified at drop-off for new parents?
Oh, that's a great question. They will have their lanyard on, their school lanyard with their house on it, and their ID badge. And on Monday, the 10th, I'm going to ask teachers to all wear some sort of TFAA logoed shirt. So look for somebody in a TFAA shirt.
Since next week is half days, how do distance learning students log in without devices in order to be counted present?
They're getting those on Monday.
Well, you're right, because it's going to take several days to give out those devices, and you don't have to worry about attendance there for those first couple of days because it's going to take a little while before everybody has a device. We're just going to count everybody present as long as you're registered and ready to go.
How will staggered pickup not congest the parking lot during dismissal? I'm worried I'll get in the way of another grade.
Well, if you've ever done pickup here before a dismissal, you know traffic can get congested just because of the number of students we have. All of our students are car riders, so we just pray that you'll be patient with us. And if you in the years past, it always takes a while those first couple of days before we can really get traffic moving. We're going to start early, like we said, so hopefully you won't be delayed in getting where you need to go too long after that. But we'll keep traffic. We'll have all the staff out there for a while. We're assigning everybody to do after school dismissal duty. So we'll have plenty of hands there to help get that traffic going. Here's another YouTube question. Can distance learning students be able to access remedial reading or math material if needed to curb any regression? Well, that's just going to be a matter of fact for all instructions. We're going to have to back up just because of the 5-month break that we've had. So everybody will be backing up a little bit just to fill in those gaps.
Will there be car hangers for pickup? Car tags?
Yes, we have the car tags in. We'll get those to you on that first day. It's okay if you come in and you don't have one yet. We'll be out there handing them to you. Does my child need to wear their mask when they come for their kindergarten screening? Yes, please. Have your child wear their mask when they come for the screening. Parents too.
If kids are in person and we are all sent home, will they come home with a device? I guess to be swapped over.
That's a great question. Possibly, yep. If we have those ready to go. Although to check out a device, there is a signed document that parents have to sign and submit. So we'll have to have a supply of those ready just in case.
Will we be utilizing the house system?
Yep. Yes, we will be utilizing the house system.
If students are sent home in the event of an outbreak, will they transition to distance learning be automatic?
Yes, it will be an automatic transition if you get sent home. You'll go right into distance learning.
Will you guys use a digital thermometer to check temperature?
Yes, we have digital thermometers. We sure do. And they just, the ones that you just point at the forehead and they take your temperature.
When will Kidum go live, and will distance learners and parents be able to get acquainted with the platform before the first day of school?
That's going to occur all next week. Just be patient. We don't expect you to have it up and running and perfectly starting August the 10th. It's going to take several days before we even get devices in the hands of some folks.
Do the laptops come with hotspots? We don't have internet.
They do not come with hotspots. They do not.
Should we expect more homework because of potential shorter class time with the class transitions?
I don't think that's anticipated at all that you'll expect more homework. As you know, we have a lot of homework here already because we're a magnet school, but I don't foresee that being increased.
What is the water bottle protocol this year?
Great question. The water bottle protocol is we want every student to bring their own water bottle labeled with their name on it. The water fountains are going to be shut down except for those 3 bottle filler stations that we have out in the building. So you'll want to take advantage of that. So have your own water bottle with you. Make sure your name is on it.
As with chickenpox or lice, will the whole school be notified if a case of COVID is on campus?
Will the whole school be notified if a case of COVID is on campus? Great question. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out and let you know. But I know definitely that those that were identified through contact tracing will be notified directly.
What about lunch boxes? Are we going to use disposable paper bags, or can they bring a reusable?
You can bring a reusable lunchbox, that is, or paper bag, whichever your preference is.
Can external doors and windows be open for extra ventilation?
Unfortunately, we're not allowed to open the doors for ventilation. That's a security issue, and they've addressed that directly and said no. But our windows here can be open. That's not the case in every school anymore, but our windows can be open. And yes, that we will allow windows to be open for ventilation.
Will there be a day that distance learners would be able to meet their teacher?
Will there be a day distance learners will be able to meet their teacher face to face?
No, earlier.
No,
Okay.
there will not. That will all be done virtually.
How often will they have mask breaks?
Well, the thought is whenever they need it, there'll be a breathing spot in the room where they can go take their mask off. But for sure, we're going to take advantage of our outdoor spaces and take regular breaks and go outside and take those masks off.
How will tests be administered for distance learning versus in-person, especially for middle school students?
They'll have to take those exams at home. That's going to be a bit dicey there. But your teacher will have some plans in place for that. And again, parents, we don't want you helping them on that. I know there's the temptation there, but we want them working on their own when they're learning from a distance.
How will distance learners participate in state mandated assessments?
That's unclear at this point whether they're going to provide an electronic version of the state assessment. That was the question, if you didn't hear it, is how will distance learners participate in state assessments? We don't know that yet. We don't know. Here's a question on YouTube. Will distance learners be allowed to enter the library with a mask to check out books? No, the library will remain closed, but we will be providing a menu of books that students can indicate they want checked out, and they'll be delivered to them.
Okay. What is the process for the school to notify us of additional needs so that we could donate? So we're going to work on the Amazon list.
Well, we'll send that out through the PTO. I really appreciate all your efforts to donate. That's really going to help us out a lot. Some things I've been telling folks to think about if they're just looking for something to get: extra art supply boxes or pencil boxes, because every child's going to have their own. Even those clear plastic face shields for kids, because there will be a few times, like we said earlier, where the teacher's working on phonics and they'll want to be able to see that child's mouth as they make those sounds. So you might think about that. There's some really cute little kids face masks out there to look at.
This has kind of been touched on. If a class has to quarantine due to exposure, will the whole class distance learn for the quarantine?
They will. If a class has to be quarantined, the whole class will go to distance learning during that quarantine period.
Will you check temperatures daily? We answered that. Do you still plan on having the middle school events? Example, back to school, homecoming.
Unfortunately, we won't be able to have the back to school bash for middle schooler. They're asking, can we still have the middle school events? And until all the restrictions are lifted as to the size of groups we can get together, unfortunately, we won't be able to have those events. But we are truly hopeful that by the time we get into the fall, we will be allowed to do some of those things.
If my child has a cough or cold and stays home for a few days, will they be able to hop on for distance learning?
If they're just home for a couple of days for a cold, I would not advise that. If they're sick, really, they need to be resting anyway, and we'll get them caught back up when they come back. That was a question: is if a child has a cough or cold and they need to stay home for that for a couple of days, could they jump on distance learning? And again, I want you to treat that like a regular illness.
How does the attendance policy work for distance learning?
Okay, great question. Attendance policy for distance learning, you will be counted present, but one of two ways: by logging in that day to see those lessons, or by submitting the work that was assigned during those lessons. That's how we'll track the attendance for distance learners.
When can we pick up materials for distance learning? You said you would post a schedule for that.
I'll post that schedule, but that's going to start all next week in the afternoons. Here's a question that says, so they can wear face shields instead of masks? No, don't misunderstand. They still need to have a mask, but there'll be an occasional time where the teacher in the lower grades, especially, is working on phonics, where they may take it off with a face shield just for a few minutes to show the teacher that they can make the right sounds, and then the mask will have to go right back on.
What is the rule with sports and masks?
The protocols for sports, I can provide those separately. About, do they have to wear a mask when they're participating? No, when they're out there on the playing field and they're playing, they are not required to wear a mask but they do have to keep distance from one another. When they're on the sidelines, the mask has to go back on.
Can you reconfirm the location for the pickup for each grade?
Sure. Remember the pickup locations for each grade level. If you're kindergarten or first grade, you're going to pick up in between the two buildings. You're going to come in around behind off of West Hutchison and pull in the drive and pick up right there next to the outdoor classroom where all the picnic tables are. If you're second grade, third grade, or fourth grade, you're going to pick up in front of the building. We want you to come down from DeLacy Lane up there. Matter of fact, you need to enter DeLacy from the Old Nashville Highway end and come in the parking lot from the upper end and back out through the lower end. And then annex students in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, you will pick up behind the annex, and also there's an entry back there off West Hutchison for that as well. Great questions. But remember, if you're an older sibling, you will go to where the younger sibling gets picked up. Okay?
At the end of each 9 weeks, will we have meetings like this to help with the transitions?
Well, I'm willing to have as many of these type meetings as you want, just to answer your questions. I know you got a ton of them. Remember too, I'm always available via email or just give us a call. But emails are a great way to get a hold of me and ask questions.
Will there be an area for new students to meet and be directed to be walked to their classes?
Yes, you're going to come in. You're going to come in both lobby entrances. Okay, K through 4, you're going to come in the lobby of the main building out front. 5, 6, 7, and 8, you're going to come in over in the annex lobby. And yes, there will be people there to get you where you need to go. There'll be people outside as well. Okay, a couple of final questions here on the YouTube channel. We have classroom donations that came with our school supplies box. What's the best way for us to drop these off if our child will be doing distance learning? Well, you're welcome to bring them in on the days that you come pick up your materials and just leave them with us then. That's when I'd suggest you do it. What's the hardware requirement for distance learning if we are sent home? Again, as long as you have a device that has that Windows suite and has internet access, I think you'll be able to do anything you need to do. And if we live nearby, can we pick up by walking or riding bikes? Absolutely. We do have several kids that do walk home. We don't usually have a lot of bike riders, but we do have a bike rack that's in between the two buildings. So yes, you're welcome to be a bike rider or a walker.
When in-person students are going to recess, taking breaks, lunch, etc., what did the distance learning kids do during this time?
We would encourage you to go outside and play. Distance learners, what do you do when the in-person learners are at recess or they're having lunch? Do the same thing at home. Go outside and play or sit down and have your lunch.
What is the plan for a teacher or substitute shortage?
Well, they are assuring us that the substitute staffing company is completely staffed. We'll see how that goes if we do have a major outbreak, how that will affect the subs. But it will be, the teacher will be planning, hopefully when they're absent, substitute plans for the substitute to implement. There may not be any live streaming that day because those substitutes typically don't have access to the server, but the teacher will be providing activities for the students to do, just like they would if they were going to be absent in person.
Will the supply list be the same for distance learners as online, as in person? Yes,
the supply list remains the same. If you're a distance learner, don't feel like you have to get all those supplies together and bring them in now. I'd encourage you, I'd suggest you just wait really until students come back to school. Okay.
Will alternate fundraisers be planned for this year?
Yes, we're looking at different ways to conduct our fundraiser. We really want to still have some sort of ram run again, because that's such a fun event for us here, and it's such a great fundraiser for your school. The PTO and I are looking at ways that we can still make that happen, but keep folks kind of distance. Will the meeting be accessible for future reference on YouTube? Yes, this will be. If I do it right, I hope to save this recording onto our YouTube channel, okay, and maybe link it to our webpage as well.
If you choose distance learning, can you swap back after the 9 weeks if COVID-19 seems to be decreasing?
You sure can. You can make a change at the end of the 9 weeks. If you have elected to do distance learning now and you want to come back after the 9 weeks, yep, you sure can do that. If you've chosen in-person learning and decide sometime during the 9 weeks that you want to go to distance, you can still do that as well. The only thing you can't do is if you've chosen distance and you want to come back to school mid 9 weeks, you won't be able to do that. Once you choose distance learning, you're committing for the rest of that 9 weeks.
If we do not have access to high-speed internet, how do we notify you?
If you don't have access to high-speed internet, how do you notify me? You can shoot me an email and I might have some ideas for you there. I know that the district is providing a few locations where you could go access that. Okay.
And middle school kids still use the microwave?
Can middle school kids still use the microwave? Wow, that's a great question that I really hadn't even thought of. Yes, we have a microwave our student council bought for our middle school kids to heat up their lunches. Let me look into that, and I'll have an answer for you.
If your child is sent home, regular, sick, or with a cold, can they dial in for distance learning? Same with COVID if you were sent home.
Now, like we said before, if you're just going home with a cold or sick, we want you to treat that like you would normally and just rest during those couple of days and not worry about accessing the distance learning. You might have that capability if you have technology at home. You could follow along with the class if you wanted to. I don't see a reason why not, because you don't have to have some kind of special access to do that.
Here's a couple more. Do we need volunteers to help clean up outdoor spaces? We kind of talked about that with beautification. We'll
work on that with our beautification committee, cleaning up our outdoor spaces. There is a little bit of work we have left to do. Our outdoor classroom, we repainted all those tables, should be good to go.
How do distance learners get a lunch?
How do distance learners get a lunch? That's a great question. We will be providing meal service. Parents that are distance learners and want to pick up meals, you can pick up a whole week's worth of meals at a time. That's the way they're going to be prepared. And our plan is you need to email Miss Nancy in the cafeteria by Monday morning at 8 to let her know. And then you can pick those lunches up on either Monday or Wednesday morning before 9 o'clock. Okay, you'll just drive up, call us, say, hey, I'm here to pick up the meals that I ordered, and we'll bring those out there to you. You don't even have to come in for that.
If we signed up for distance learning and change our mind before the kindergarten phase-in days, can we swap to in-person?
If you're going to swap, you have to do that by registration August 10th, if you're going to come back. Okay. Here's a question. If a family chooses to take a vacation during the school year, can a child log in and distance learn and not be counted as absent? Well, if you're a distance learner, you're learning from a distance, and who's to say what that distance is? So as long as you're still completing assignments, participating in class, it doesn't really matter where you are.
I feel like
Okay,
we need
one more question.
Okay. There's a lot of concern about new students and parents not being able to come in. That's been mentioned several times. Do you want to touch on that again, just the safety?
Right. I certainly understand those concerns, new parents that are concerned, bring your kids in, never been here before. We're going to meet you outside. Dr. Oakshire and myself will both be outside along with all of our staff. You come up to us, park your car, get out, walk them up to us. Please wear your mask though. Come sit and we'll talk to you then and there. And make sure you understand where we're going, and we'll walk them in and get them there where they need to go. Okay? Okay. All right. And then one last question, and then this will do it. If a child appears to have a cold and has a fever at home, is it required that they seek testing and are confirmed negative before they return to school? Well, especially if they have a fever, your options are this. You can quarantine for 14 days and then come back. If you have been fever-free and symptom-free for 24 hours, or you can go to the doctor and get tested or have the doctor confirm, no, it's not the virus, it's just a cold. And then they can come back again once they're fever-free for 24 hours, regardless of the number of days. Hope that helps answer that question. Thanks for joining me today. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I hope I was able to answer some of your questions and ease your mind. Just understand that, you know, your child's safety is the most important thing to us, and your child's health is the most important thing to us. We do want them back in school. We think that's the best way for kids to learn is in person. But if we don't all follow the proper protocols, it's going to take a lot longer for us to get back to that point. So continue to email me with questions you have or give us a call. But again, remember, email is a great way to get a hold of me and ask those questions. All right. Thanks to the PTO for doing the Facebook Live today. And thanks everybody for joining us. Talk to you soon.